Well, it's taken all winter, but we finally have the best pattern we've seen all season for one of those big nor'easters. That doesn't mean it's going to be all snow, though. Meanwhile, on the west coast of the United States, in the Sierra Nevadas, more than 500 inches of snow. 500 inches has fallen there, and even more footage of snow is coming. I'm Jonathan, your no BS meteorologist. We are going to kick things off in the Northeast, and then we're going to venture to the West and talk about the continuation of this historic winter. We are picking things up on Friday evening. This is the little guy, so this is not the big blizzard potential. This is the one that a lot of other YouTubers were hyping up for a big snowstorm along the I-95 corridor. We talked in our latest video that this would likely be, for the most part, a cold rain along the coast. Decent snow, though, inland. We also talked about that. So a good snowstorm coming for southern New York into northeastern Pennsylvania. But again, the big cities are going to miss out on this one. Philadelphia, New York. That is a cold rain in the green and yellow there Friday evening. We do get some changeover, though, as we move into Saturday morning. That is 7 a.m. Nice little burst of heavy snow just inland here. Northern New Jersey, just outside of New York. Nice little burst of snow, maybe a slushy inch before we finally get things to change over to a few light snowflakes in New York City. Don't think they amount to much, if anything. Could have a nice little burst here of snow towards Boston Saturday afternoon and evening. That main area of low pressure back off the coast. But a nice little stripe there, nice little snow squall coming through into parts of Rhode Island, just inland of Cape Cod, again, just along the coast in Massachusetts. It's not a ton of snow for Boston. It's not a ton of snow for the I-95 corridor. Hardly any, really. Might look crazy for a time in Boston, though, as we get things going Saturday afternoon. In terms of the amount of snow, it's going to be just inland New Jersey into southern New York here. That's where we could see a widespread 4 to 8 inches of snow, again, through about Saturday morning. And then also right along Lake Erie, we still are getting some of that lake enhancement as that low moves away. The lake isn't frozen yet. It's hardly been frozen all year because of how warm it's been, but a decent snowfall, maybe up to a foot, more than decent, right along Lake Erie. So we are going to be watching that. Again, maybe a slushy half inch to an inch in northern New Jersey. Likely less than that in New York City. So not a ton of snow coming for our friends right along the I-95 corridor. Here we go. This is going to be Monday. So we are fast forwarding to the bigger deal now. We have some lighter snow picking up through central Pennsylvania as we have our upper low kind of diving out of Canada. And then watch what happens as we move into Tuesday. Look at this thing just explode, rapidly strengthening, likely bombing out. You'll likely hear the term bombogenesis. It's a real thing. Just means that this thing is strengthening at about 24 millibars. The pressure is dropping about 24 millibars in a 24-hour period. But look at all the heavy snow that's cranking up as a result. Just inland of New York City, just inland of Boston, through northern New Jersey, northeast PA, and then southeast New York State. Watch this ramp up further. That is early Tuesday morning, and we have a likely blizzard on our hands by Tuesday afternoon. So big area of low pressure, kind of making a landfall towards Cape Cod. So not good news if you're rooting for all snow in Boston, as a lot of that warmth from the Atlantic going to be pushed inland right along the coast. But just crushing stuff now coming from just inside of New York City into northern Rhode Island and Connecticut, inland Massachusetts, and then through inland Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. Big time snowstorm ramping up Tuesday into early Wednesday for us there. The next thing I want to show you is the upper level pattern. I mentioned earlier in the video that this is no doubt the best pattern that we have had all winter for any kind of big nor'easter. I still think we have a little bit of problems along the coast for the huge totals, but I do think we're at least in play here in places like New York City and in Boston. Big Ridge out west, check. That's what we need. I would like it to be a little more amplified and a little closer towards Boise, Idaho. That's why we call it the Boise Ridge, but it's enough to generate this nice trough in the east. Again, if it was more amplified out here, this would be digging further south. It would put the surface low just a little further off the coast, which would allow the cold air to come closer to the coast. The Atlantic is way above normal, so any time we get that low really, really close to the shoreline, that's where we are looking for that rain-snow battle line. Also, I want to show you where we were lacking this time around with this little guy coming through Friday night was any kind of blocking. That allowed the storm to just move freely out into the Atlantic. This is now Tuesday night, right in here. That red, that is the anomaly for high pressure, the higher than normal heights at 500 millibars, about 20,000-ish feet above your head. That would indicate a little bit of blocking anyway over Greenland. Here is our storm. It keeps it tied to the coast for one, but then this also helps to supply some colder air back down into New England for that moisture that it's meeting up with to play with. So check. So we have a couple of those big things that you look for at this stage of the game for that big snowstorm potential. I want to highlight that further by showing you some of the probabilities for more than a foot of snow. And there are some very high probabilities as given by the Euro. That's what we're looking at here, the ensemble probabilities. And you see through western New York, northeast Pennsylvania, just inside of New York City, just inside of Boston, and then coastal, I should say inland Maine, just inside of the coast there. That's probabilities of higher than 70% for more than a foot of snow. So again, we're talking about a crushing storm with the snow, but then we also have the wind component with this. I mentioned about on Tuesday, we're going to likely see this thing ramp up big time and talk about blizzard potential right along the coast. Right there, the little circle, that's a 70 mile per hour plus wind gust. Again, right inland of the coast in parts of southeast New Hampshire, right along the coast of Maine, right along the coast of Massachusetts. All through here, though, we're talking about 40 mile per hour wind gust at least. That's going to be on Tuesday. That really starts ramping up, though, on Monday night. Hey, do me a favor. If you are finding this video helpful or informative, if you're liking this content, please hit that thumbs up button. It really does help me out a lot. We're going to transition to the continuation of this ridiculously historic winter in the West, something that has been much needed. We'll get into a little more specifics of what we don't need coming up in just a second, but this is the Pineapple Express setup when you get this atmospheric river just blasting California. Right off the screen here, there's Hawaii. So we have the moisture connected to Hawaii, and that's where we get that Pineapple Express setup. That is what it's going to look like. That's the amount of moisture in our atmosphere available to use here on Friday. That's what's fueling this deal through the upcoming weekend that is going to keep that snowfall potential very, very high in the Sierras, and then rainfall potential extremely high with that flood potential really high. I want to show you the NOAA day one. That is going to be Friday here. Excessive rainfall outlook. And you see we have a high risk for flooding in the lower elevations of the Sierra and then right along the coast in western California. Here's the deal. The last rounds of snow that we've had were lower elevation snow. So we had a ton of fall snow in the lower elevations. This next round of snow, which I'll show you how much in just 1 second, it's going to be held higher to the higher elevations. So what we're going to have happening is all of that heavy rain is going to fall on that snow in the lower elevations and then run off. So we have extreme flood potential in the lower elevations here. And then, of course, in a couple thousand feet up in the Sierras where we're going to have that heavy rainfall where we got crushed with the footage of snow just last week and beyond. So that gets us through the weekend. Early next week, there's another one of these giant, massive atmospheric rivers coming into play. We're going to pick this up again on Monday morning, and we're looking especially towards the brighter colors here, so the darker oranges and reds. This is going to be the wind speed now at about 15 to 20,000 feet, and you see where it is directed here. The darker colors represent where we have the higher wind speed, so this is going to be your jet stream energy rolling right off of the Pacific, transporting all of that moisture and kind of unleashing it right on into California again, bringing more heavy rain to California, bringing more heavy snow to the Sierra Nevadas in California. Look at the snowfall forecast. Again, this is through Sunday. We're talking about another 75 to 100 inches of snow falling there in that brighter pink or purple right down through the higher elevations of the Sierra Nevadas. Taking that out further, it expands. This is going to be after that secondary deal. Now we're talking about that max snowfall through Thursday, again in the higher peaks of the Sierras, maxing out at 120 plus inches of snow. Okay, remember that number, because look at all of the snow that the Sierras have picked up so far. In some cases, more than 500 inches of snow in parts of the Sierra Nevadas. I mean, this has been a ski lover's dream. This has been a drought buster's dream as well. Now, I mentioned some of the things that we need to watch out for. Certainly, like what we're going to be dealing with on Friday. We don't want to get that runoff like we're going to see on Friday. That's why that flood threat is high. But also looking further into the future in spring, we don't want a giant warm up. We don't want this snow to melt fast, because then we would have the potential for catastrophic flooding. If we get that gradual warm up, a nice gentle snow melt as we move into spring and summer, this is going to be insanely beneficial for all of the aquifers and the reservoirs out there that have really responded to all this rain, and in some cases need to be released. But nonetheless, if we get that nice, gentle snow melt come spring, come summer, this will likely put an end to the long-standing extreme drought completely, which has already seen massive improvement to rest out in California. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, if you love talking and tracking the weather, if you love following the weather, we'd love to have you on board. Please hit that subscribe button if you like this content. At the very least, I would love it if you give it a thumbs up. It really does help us out a lot. Again, we're watching that blizzard potential in the Northeast. And again, friends in California, please be safe out there. Again, it could get ugly with all of that heavy rain falling on top of that very heavy snow from the last week or so. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll catch you next time.